Men have been steadily dropping out of the workforce, especially men aged 25 to 54, who are often considered to be in their prime working years.
First of all, prime working years is an awful phrase. When you use words like these, regardless of men or women, you just turn people into simple economic units that just need to work and consume.
As of August 2024, 13.7% of prime age men were not working, compared to just 7.2% in 1954.
Why isn't it even a problem? The drop is only 6.5% in 70 years. Only 6.5 in a time of great productivity increase. Because over the last 70 years, right, we had a huge tech revolution that led to exponential productivity growth. The same worker can do a lot more work in a fifth of the time now, right, compared to 70 years ago. And with the advancements in AI, the same worker is even more productive. Think about it in tech. With AI, you can actually be as 10 times, almost 10 times more productive when writing code, depending on your level of seniority, of course. So why is this a problem in the first place?
That's really interesting to figure out how much productivity it's going to create and who is the beneficiary of that productivity.
We need less people to continue to have great productivity. So many of these men and even women, they realize that they want to focus more on what makes them happy and stop grinding every day, because now this is actually possible.
If I'm an employee and I've suddenly freed up a half hour of my day, I don't really want my employer to know that, so that they give me another half hour of work.
People have been living to work for a long time, but now they're actually thinking, if everything is so expensive, right, and I can't even afford to buy a house and take care of a family, then why even work? Just to get by? So many people decided to cut their losses and focus on what they actually like, because in the end, the future is not guaranteed, and slaving away at a 9-to-5 job where managers try to overwork you, it doesn't really make sense anymore. So even people that are still employed, they're doing the bare minimum, because why shouldn't they?
There's a surplus of prime age workers who could be working and aren't, and that's this puzzling problem.
Yes, they could be working for others, but more and more people realize that they need to work for themselves. Here's comments from you guys related to what you're doing now. Since it's pointless to even try to get a job anymore, I'm only working on a startup pretty much full time. Applying occasionally, but honestly, it's a ghost town and recruiters are a joke. So I'm starting a business online. Start your own company, get your Delaware Corp, and go to the US and get funding is my plan. So a lot of men and women are giving up on trying to compete in this race to the bottom. It's better to actually try and run your own business in a time where companies actually don't respect us anymore.
The unemployment rate for prime age working men sat at 3.4%, but about 10.5% of men in their prime working years, or roughly 6.8 million men nationwide, are neither working nor looking for employment, compared to just 2.5% in 1954.
I see. So again, what's the problem? That's 4 times more men that are doing this compared to 70 years ago. But if the same person can do 5 times more work per day than 70 years ago, then we're still better off in terms of productivity. And this only takes men into account. What's the workforce participation for women compared to 70 years ago? I don't really have the exact numbers, so please tell me, but I think it's exponential. You can't even compare it, so it's hardly a problem. But you can blame the men that they don't really want to work, and you can sell that narrative because they should be working towards what goal, right? A family? A house? Everything is so financialized to the point that it just became a numbers game.
Men who are not college educated leave the workforce at higher rates than men who are.
Okay, they're likely to leave the workforce if they don't go to college, but what is the workforce? Just office jobs or so-called skilled jobs? Maybe people that drop off from the workforce, maybe they just get into the trades and then they're their own boss and do jobs by themselves. There's so many ways to make money online nowadays, and there's more ways than ever to become an entrepreneur. And I'm not talking about the gig economy, because we have a whole separate economy now with food delivery and Uber and the like. Those numbers are not recorded, and there are so many immigrants right now that are mostly men that do this type of jobs, and I believe that if we take that into account, men's workforce participation actually grew. They get paid a lot less, right? But in absolute numbers, I bet that there are a lot more than is being recorded. And if you got numbers on these, please share them down in the comments.
At the same time, fewer younger men have been enrolling in college over the past decade.
I'm old enough to remember college differently, but nowadays college campuses are pretty much toxic for men.
I think generally these highly, mob-based institutions where everybody gets an equal say regardless of merit, they tend to degenerate. And so I think universities are just on that slow degeneration generation cycle.
This is why men are not enrolling in higher education, because the environments are not welcoming to them. Look at what Naval is saying.
College is a checkbox. And the easiest way to see that is if we said, okay, you could go to college, but you wouldn't get a diploma. Would you still do it? You wouldn't get a credential, you wouldn't do it. So I think the best move now is just to get admitted to a Stanford or an MIT, drop out and put the admission letter on your wall.
This is the best way to do it. You have the proof that you can do it, then that you're smart enough. And then you can save many years in which you can just get real world experience, and you avoid being indoctrinated and just taught to be a cog in a machine. But skipping this step doesn't really solve the problems that men face when they join the workforce. We get a workforce completely shaped by DEI policies, and while I completely support equal opportunities, what happens is that the qualifications and the experience start mattering less than random quotas that are based on things that you cannot control. Because your identity, right, and so on, right, they're not tweaks that you can just make, such as, for example, learning a new skill. So many of these men get disillusioned and depressed because they cannot really compete on a merit base. So your achievements aren't tied to your capabilities, but they're not tied to actual random quotas that just keep shifting based on policy. Again, on a policy that you have no control over.
Wages could also be a contributing factor. Median annual wages for men with a high school diploma have fallen. This decline in earnings led to a 44% growth in the exit rate of men without a college degree from the workforce.
When you know that there's a cap or even a decline in salaries, then there's no motivation to do better. We have less united families and more single people that all they see around, they're just meaningless jobs where they're just gonna get either overworked or fired as soon as it's convenient for the company. And this goes for both men and women. There's equal opportunity to get fired and overworked for both. If you only have dead-end jobs and on the other side you just have the gig economy where you have to work for 12 hours a day to barely make a living, why would you even work? Best to work for yourself, build something for yourself instead of actually joining cult-like companies. Also, everything got more expensive. Jobs are being offshored, and the only work that is available to the vast majority of people are food delivery, Uber, and Amazon delivery. And these are the type of jobs that are unglamorous. Men place a lot of their value in their ability to provide for a family. You can't tell men that they have to be the breadwinner while at the same time shaming them for not taking jobs that make less than the cost of living in some areas.
I think, honestly, status plays more of a role than wages.
This right here is the real reason. Men are status driven, and that's baked in for centuries. So as you lose that status, you stop caring about things, and I think you just stop caring about society overall. So unless work will start to mean something more and will signal some sort of higher status, I believe that men will continue to drop off and pursue their own interests. And corporations are here to blame because they really change societies for the worse. Because if all you care about is profits and headcount, then where the human resources are located, that doesn't really matter. You just need economic units to work and consume your products. Whether they're in India or the UK or the US, it doesn't really matter. But for the people that live in those countries, it's all that matters.
You were part of the community, breadwinner for your family, you had organizations like unions or Rotary clubs that surrounded your job, and that's gone.
My take from the whole video is that it's an attempt to make it look like it's an us problem, right? It's meant to portray men as lazy and that they should just get out there and work. It doesn't matter that it's a losing proposition, they just need to work, otherwise they're lazy. And they're not really pointing out, or at least they're not even trying to identify the real causes that led to this, because those causes are not in line with the current narrative, and that narrative is that men are lazy. I think men are waking up to the reality that society can be tilted against them. The premise in this article at least is that all men of a certain demographic should be in paid work. There's many examples of the cost of childcare and maintaining paid employment, transport, etc., nearly meeting or even exceeding the income attained through paid employment. At least here in the UK, the costs of childcare are through the roof, and if you earn an average salary, then that salary just pays for childcare and for your commute to work, and you don't even get to spend time with your child in the first place. So it makes sense for the partner that earns less money to stay at home. And this can be both men and women, because we live in a world where all dynamics are a lot more fluid. Perhaps we should ask those men who have had their overall quality of life increased increased by decreasing or stopping paid work, if they would class this as a problem, because there's a good proportion who relish the opportunity to redefine masculinity in ways that widens choice and actively provides opportunity and support previously denied. This is something that the CNBC video didn't do. They only asked older men and they only asked women about this. Personally, I would like to see a prime-aged man, to answer this. So my question is, why did you leave the workforce? Did you take a sabbatical or did you leave it completely? And how did this help your overall state of mind? Men should not be expected to work a paying job, nor should they be expected to be solely caregivers. It's a decision that needs to be made based on his situation or with an equal partner. This is a fair take because we're at a point in society where we need to assess our options and responsibilities equally. The more that I look into this, the more that I realize that men don't want to work takes, they're just made by people that just want to push double standards on them. I just looked up all the stats on workforce participation. For both genders is down since 2010 to the point where we are at a total participation equivalent of 1970s. Yes, more of the pie is now women, but the whole pie shrank. So again, not a single gender problem. People, right? Both men and women, they realize that they're being taken advantage of and they're stopping to participate in this nonsense. But what do you think? Should we be worried about more and more people deciding not to look for work anymore? Hope you enjoyed my comments, and if you want me to talk more about this, let me know down in the comments. Check out getthatbadge.com if you're looking for a way to get cloud certified and get a job as a cloud engineer. And if you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.